Fnatic losing in that way is the entire problem with Europe and the reason we can't win internationally.
And why can't we play on the hotfix? Oh, because the teams might complain that they can't play Smolder.
With that in mind,
you punch Rekkles at some point? He deserved
Martin,
it.
if you hear this, do not hate me.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Jungle episode number 2. I'm Ginny, joined with Fnatic, Broxah and Cubby, and we're going to be talking anything and everything related to LEC and LCS. And with the LEC first week of spring being done and dusted, Fnatic, what in the actual is pre-recorded draft?
You can sweat. Say it, Ginny.
What in the actual fuck is pre-recorded draft? Get me out!
I don't know. I 100% understand trying to get transition times down, but I hate pre-recorded draft. It is so boring. It might just be that the meta is slow at the moment as well, but the idea that you have like all these players, you see them in the practice tool on stage, no one's reacting to picks, you don't get like as much interaction with the coaches and such as well, you don't hear people talking over picks. It is just so messed up. And that's just the outside appearance. The really big thing that I hate about it is you get 20 minutes to practice your matchup before the game.
Yeah.
Like, the enemy picks Kalista Ashe bot lane and wants to go all in level 3. Your jungler gets to sit there and say, okay, guys, this is how you stack a wave. This is exactly how you want to play this wave. And then I'll be there at exactly 3 minutes 27 so that we can make sure we're countering a gank that's going to happen in the bot lane. It makes the game so tedious and so slow. And it ruins a lot of the instinctual reactions that I think make players great a lot of the time. Now, I'm not saying none of our players are great at the moment, right? But a lot of the time you'd see a team do something wacky. The enemy team have to react on the fly. And those reactions are what really define whether a team is on the same page and whether they can play well around unexpected surprises.
Yeah. And that's like one thing that's a whole different part of it. But I think as well, when we're looking at the community reaction, people aren't the happiest about it. Bro, I was looking at G2 KC and the draft was playing and KC just all got out of their chairs and started hugging. Like, respect, hug a homie. But I want to see some reactions every now and then. Hello. But that's Broxah. The pro players are also not happy because Razork particularly tweeted, "No habla español." So I'm not going to read this in Spanish, but I'm going to do it in English. And it says, the new format of drafting before playing the game is historic. Shit. Broxah, would you like to agree?
I definitely would. I think one of the beauties of League from a pro player point of view has always been that you can prepare so many cool things going into the weekend, and when you log it in on stage, the enemy team has no time to prepare, they have no time to talk to their coaches or analysts. But now, as a player, like let's say the enemy logs in, I don't know, freaking Nasus top, something crazy, right?
Is it not
like
Nasus?
I can literally,
Wow, we're not accent shaming here, Ginny. I'm sorry. You come in here and you shame him for being Danish? One of the countries the greatest esports stars in the history of the world?
It was like when people used to say LeBlanc. Why is it
Okay.
Sorry.
I'll call him the dog champ. Like Solas did back in 2017. That's a throwback to the OG watchers. Anyways.
It's Susan.
The problem is, I like if I'm on that team, I can literally go on a group call with like everybody in the entire organization and have a 15-minute sit down about how exactly I'm supposed to take down this champion and make sure it never gets to play the game to begin with. And I think that removes a big cheese element, but I also think it removes some of the, let's say, agency that players has. And I think being able to adapt on the fly and being able to just put yourself in any given situation and come out on top is such a cool part of being a pro. And if this is the direction we're going, I wonder when we're going to get to the point where the players can hear the coach or they have a sixth man just sitting and telling them what to do at all parts of the game. Like, that's the direction we're moving in from my point of view. And I think that sucks. I'm not a big fan of it. I've seen a lot of people complain about it for good reason.
Yeah.
But I think what you also need to remember is that a lot of viewers are also going to appreciate it, because at the end of the day, the reason it's been done is to reduce the time between games. I think it's been reduced by like 7-8 minutes or something by doing this, so it's not all bad. So I think it's just, what do you want? Like, do you want cooler, cooler games with players being more in control, and you're going to see more skill discrepancy, you can see more cheese picks, or do you want less time between games? That's what it comes down to.
Honestly, at that point, just play Subway server. Like, keep the TikToks.
Oh yeah,
when
just
we're
have
right
like
engaged.
TikTok
Like,
where you just have Subway on the side.
Yeah,
Oh,
like
genius.
7 minutes, man, bro. For 7 minutes, I think as well. Like looking at the LCS, Cubby, this has been something that's been around for a lot longer since the start of this year. From an NA perspective, how we've kind of already spoke about it last time, but now that you've seen it on the LEC as well, are you not a fan? I say that you're not.
I mean, honestly, I am a fan of the shorter game times. I think that like the community sentiment's been good too, and it's interesting because so I do a podcast with Travis Gafford, Hotline League, and we got a call about this last night, and actually learned about the workflow a little bit because we had the FlyQuest on with us, their front office, and how it works in NA.
Okay,
I'm not sure if it's the same in EU. Is the fact that you start the draft like 10 minutes into the game, like whatever game's prior, when it hits the 10-minute mark, the teams for the next game, they start drafting. But when they do, they confiscate phones and you actually don't have access to the internet. So it's not like you can queue up and like play the warm-up tool. You do have more time to talk and think about this with your coaches. But I know that at least they were saying from a staff perspective that it was a bit different, like for the teams. Also, I find it wild because we start playoffs next week in NA and it's just flipped back like to the old thing. So for best of fives, like they're on stage, like they're drafting there, it's live. So like it's a total pivot. And I find that potentially jarring, especially for like FlyQuest and 100 Thieves are our top two teams. They have younger players who are rookies and have never experienced this on stage. Like they've played, challengers before, right? And up and coming players, like they've played tournaments, but this will be the first time in the LCS days to get to actually experience that. And I'm kind of curious to see what kind of impact it has going into our next week.
But I also think it would be cool. Like, let's say we're going to stick to this. We're going to pre-record the drafts. I still don't think it's optimal, especially if it's not going to be around for international tournaments. But let's say it's going to stay. Then putting everybody in full isolation and confiscating their phones and removing the access to PCs and just like prisoning them inside a little room with no access to the outside world might be the way to go about it. Because then, at least, you're going to have the two coaches and the 5 players like having to work together on finding out how to go into the game. Like I know something we did sometimes on Fnatic back in the day. Not often, but if we wanted like a really clear plan, like we would literally pull up a whiteboard and I or somebody else would talk about how to approach the first part of the game. And I could say like, this is what I'm going to do level 1. I'm going to path here and then mid is going to do this and top is going to do this and then we kill this guy there. And it could be kind of similar with the pre-recorded drafts. Like you would have to come up with so many cool ideas on how to, push the game forward. I don't think it's all a bad thing. I think there can come cool things outside of it. But I also think it's probably going to favor the best teams the most, or teams that generally have poor early games, because it's also easy to come up with a defensive plan, so you're going to be okay.
I mean, it also favors teams that have more staff, right? Like if you have 3 minds alongside the team thinking about whether or not they can play a certain early game in a certain way, and you have 20 minutes, basically you've expanded the amount of brain power you have for those 20 minutes if you have more analysts and more stuff there, right?
But that's why I said 2 coaches, because then it should be only the guys that go on stage. Nobody else should have access to the players, because then it's even for all, right?
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
I get
That's
that.
a good point.
I will say LEC, as far as I can see, you have practice PCs that do have access to the internet. You can't tweet the draft and you can't like tell family members the draft and such, but as far as I understand, they have access to the internet. And yeah.
They can't tell their mother that they're going to first pick Smolder?
I know,
That's
right? It's crazy. We're going to ban Senna, Mom. And then we'll pick Smolder for you, Mom.
I'm going to be honest.
Press R. I'm going to press R for you, Mom.
Oh my god. I wouldn't want my mom to know that I'm playing Smolder. Jesus Christ.
It's disgrace on you and your family every time you do
It's actually really interesting though, because Broxah, you brought up a point about international events and whether or not these pre-recorded drafts are going to be a part of it, and if you're like so out of practice as we're seeing now with the LCS removing it, how are players going to be able to adapt in such a pressure environment? And that's actually a question that we had as well for Anonyme 5142. And they asked, will the pre-recorded drafts in international events too? Reminder, you can ask your questions down below. We'll answer them in the next episode, so make sure you take part in that. But if they are not in international events, Medic, and then we're bringing in the LEC and the LCS, and we're already getting like respectfully stomped, I don't see it getting any
Not
better.
respectfully. Like, there's no respect there. We're getting shit stomped, Jenny. Like, come on. I really don't think there'll be any international events. I don't have any inside information. I want to stress that. This is not Riot telling me this or anything, right? Like, I'm a freelancer, I don't know this stuff. But I sincerely doubt it. Firstly, because LCK and LPL haven't played with pre-recorded drafts. Secondly, because the playoffs are on non-pre-recorded drafts anyway. So they'll say, oh, LCS and LEC have enough time to practice. And thirdly, LPL and LCK have a lot of sponsors. And if you're cutting down transition times between games, it's really hard to get all of those sponsors in the ad break. So I really, it's already wall-to-wall in their ad break of actual adverts. I sincerely doubt that the sponsors will be very happy if we say, hey guys, sorry, but we want the viewers into the game 7 minutes faster, so we have to cut 3 of your ad blocks, right? I think I just... Firstly, from a competitive integrity point of view, I don't think you can introduce it without LCK and LPL already being on it. And secondly, I think from a business point of view, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I'm actually interested. So I have this theory, and maybe it's a little bit influenced by Dota. Not to reference, be a heretic here and reference the other MOBA, but I personally think
any of us, we're not Riot, man. You can talk about whatever the fuck you want, right?
I mean, still, it's a league show. Regardless. When I always tune in the Dota for the international. I love that tournament, and it gives the puzzle of figuring out a MOBA back for me, which I find fun. I oftentimes notice that in their broadcast, they actually don't cover draft until later on. And as a broadcaster, I don't think I need to talk about draft until R1, R2. You can talk about it, but I don't find it interesting to talk about until you see a team open and then a team respond, and then you can kind of go from there. And I'm wondering that if another way they could cut down transition times is to just hop into draft a little bit later and play catch up, because I am very much in the boat of in the international tournaments, I don't want to see pre-recorded draft. I think that Broxah is 100% right. There's something that's sitting up on stage in that chair where you have a minute as a coach after everything's locked in to talk to your team, and then you are gone, right? And that's, I think, part of the fun of League of Legends is that you have to react really quickly and figure out from when the last pick gets locked in to when you spawn in the rift. You got about 90 seconds to figure out what you want to do. And that's a big part of the game. And I definitely don't want that to change at the highest level.
I think it's also kind of a tough balance, right? Finding out what is best for viewership now, but also what is going to be best for viewership in the long run. And I think, for sure, if a European or North American team actually makes a deep run at Worlds, that's naturally going to boost the viewership like crazy in whatever league it happens in, like we saw in 2018 and 19.
I smell the copium.
There was so much hype.
I did though. Broxah was part of those teams. The best time to be an LEC fan was 2018, 2019, because everyone was engaged, everyone was interested.
Yeah, but the thing is, right, and that's the tricky part. So how much do you want to do to get more viewership now? Because I think something like pre-recorded drafts doesn't help the EU teams in any way whatsoever. It limits their ability to find solutions on the spot going inside game, because they're going to get more used to talking about it. And I know it's not a thing in playoffs, but still, there's so little amount of games already, we got to make the most of them. And then there's the fact that we don't play as many best-ofs as they do in LCK and LPL. I think we could have a lot more official games, generally speaking. You could play half of them online, I don't care, but just more games with pressure. And I think that's the real challenge here. For me, I would like to do everything possible for the players to have no excuses to not perform internationally. Just give them 100% even or even better terms than LCK and LPL and see what happens. Because sure, some of the games probably would have less viewership, but if one team this year or next year or the year after that gets to the world final or wins the tournament, whatever, then the viewership is naturally going to come anyways.
I definitely agree with that. And even from a non-player point of view, obviously I'm really good friends with most of the analysts, all of the analysts on the LEC, all of the AD, etc. It's strange to see the portions of the show where we directly build players deliberately cut out. Because I can try and build a player during a game, when I'm casting them, but they kind of have to play well. Otherwise, I'm oh, guys, look at Broxah. Yeah, he's 0-7, but he's been playing in this league for 6 years, and he's really good, trust me. And you don't
Why
have the same.
0-7?
I mean, I was trying to. I just picked Broxah because then I don't flame any of the actual players, right? Like, it's like trying to build Saken when he was playing the ASOL, right? Like, had a really good early game. It's like, oh, look at him, guys. He's actually a guy we have to watch. And then he tries to be Camille and like ults the like jumps onto the back line and gets killed by an Aatrox. But if you have Saken go on to the AD afterwards and get to talk about what he's doing, and you give him 5 minutes and you say, hey, Saken, build a connection with the fans. Actually discuss what you're thinking with these fans. It makes it so much easier for people to grasp onto something within these teams, right? Like a lot of our big teams at the moment are led by a single personality. Like you have Mad Lions Koi, which is led by Kometo, and not Kometo, sorry, Ibai, and then you have KC that's led by Kometo, right? Yeah. And even like you look at the other big viewership numbers, Kadril, right? Kadril co-streaming, people go there for him as a personality, right? And we're out of the generation where all of our pro players would stream all the time. Right? When I started watching League, it was, I watched all the C9 streamers, I watched all the TSM streamers, I watched all the Fnatic players that would stream. Like, I remember watching like the odd one, and there's no way now you would find me watching a speaker stream. Not because I think he's a bad player or anything, but just because like he doesn't stream that regularly and he's not pulling in big numbers, so it's really hard for me to connect with him. But if you put that player front and center for a 10-minute block on an AD, it's a lot easier for audience members to connect with him. I think Nisqy does a really good job of it, right? Often he's on the AD, he streams regularly, and he gets relatively good streamer numbers. But when you cut out that portion of the broadcast, the longevity of these players goes down. Because it's like, well, why would I watch Nisqy on his stream for a split or a year when I haven't had the chance to connect with him while he's actually being a pro player? I think Broxah is a great example as well, right? Like you were quite regularly a guest on the show even when you were a pro player, and then you developed your stream alongside that, and now your stream has good numbers and we see you coming back and people will watch you because they know your personality. But I don't think you get that if you cut out the portions of the show where players can actually demonstrate their personality and connect with the fans.
I think
that was like mind-boggling.
I think there's 2 points to make here. One is the fact that most of the players that never appear on camera on the LEC, it's not their fault they don't appear there. Like often certain players are just never being asked, and on the broadcast there's always going to be naturally preferences towards certain players that are the best on camera.
Can I just stress Broxah quickly? This isn't flame at the players. This is saying if you take out that time, there's much less space for the players to even be.
Right? I got your point.
Right? Yeah, cool.
So I think that's one side of it, and I actually often feel bad for like players or teams that are not getting that much attention on broadcast generally, because I think all teams have interesting stories. But I think there's also the part that both organizations and most players have cut out most time that they would spend on streaming and YouTube and social media and anything related to content and creating fans. And I'm not 100% sure why exactly that happened, because I don't know, it's just a bit weird to me, like similar to you, Medic. Like part of how I fell in love with League was I would watch all of the games in EU and NA, I would play a lot of solo queue, I would always have some streamer to watch from either region while playing or when I was doing whatever, right? But now, like, some of the players are streaming, but a lot of them don't do absolutely anything to get fans. The organizations are not pushing them as much to get fans. And I think that's another problem. And if you go that route, like if you're taking out all these things that can create more fans and interest in the league and for your organization, then you better freaking perform. And that's another problem. Like, they're not doing as much as they used to 5, 6, 7 plus 10 years ago, whatever. But they're still damn bad. And that's not good enough.
I mean, that's like another problem too, because like your fandom should never be based off of purely like how well you perform, right? Obviously, if you win, you're going to gain popularity, and rightfully so, right? You work to earn that, you prove that on stage, but there are a lot more reasons to be fans of people. Like, I think that the Nisqy example is great. Like, Nisqy was in NA, he's really well-spoken, really thoughtful, and when you get time to explore that, and he's done a good job with, kind of arming himself around it, there's no wonder that, people are able to pick him up and follow him. I think it's really interesting because, like, obviously NA, we were the first to experiment with the lower transition times, and that did really cut AD a lot. And a lot of those moments where you can talk to Saken, like even after a loss, right, and just be like, hey, what's up? What happened there, right? And I think that like the one thing that I recognize, like that all LCS fans like been talking about is pros. And if you don't know what pros is pretty much our PGL equivalent, where it's one of the ADs or an X-Pro that sits down with like 2 or 3 current pros and they just talk. And I will give a lot of the LCS pros a lot of credit they've said some spicy things on there, and that's been a lot of fun. Like when they get to sit down and just kind of shoot the shit with no consequences and kind of just get to talk shop. I think a lot of fans have really enjoyed that. And I mean, I think it's good content no matter what. We see, right now it's pretty common, if you're a retired, ex-NBA player, you're going to start a podcast, just tell old stories, and it's a lot of fun. I think that's just great content all around. But I'm also kind of curious if like people love that content so much because interviews are reading the break now, or there are a lot less analyst desk segments. Like there was a great Telestrated segment that Emily Rand ran about a fight that River had, and that happened during draft, like after a pick was locked in, right? So I think like a lot of the changes in terms of broadcast is different. There's also some changes post-broadcast, something that the LCS has been doing, kind of talking about streaming. So Challengers League, the league that I cover, because, they had to get the Tier 2 caster for the Tier 2 region on the show, right?
I mean, you guys did.
Sometimes
G2 did die to you guys, so,
Yeah, I mean, thank you for the reminder. That's nice. Sometimes, we raid a Challengers League. Other times, we raid LCS pros. And the LCS will, like, tell pros, like, hey, stream after this, and we'll raid you, and then people can, like, help out, and you can all like and subscribe to, like, this show and their stuff, So I think overall, like, that's something where that's actually helped a lot of pros. Like, I've seen a lot of the pros that have been rated, like, their numbers have been boosted from that, and that's an interesting strategy, I think, that, like, I actually will give LCS some credit in terms of, like, what they've done, because I do see pros with bigger streamer numbers now, and I'm wondering if, like, that and also money dropping a lot here in NA is, like, really motivated pros to actually build up their brand outside of more than just League, because they feel like they need to now.
I would also like the question in terms of, like, building your brand outside of just, being on the broadcast, playing your games. Realistically, how many hours do pro players really have? I know that, I'm not sure entirely how it is for League, but I know for other games, there's, like, you're practicing, like, 12 hours, 6 days a week. When are you going to stream, bro? You still have to play solo queue after scrims?
Well, people used to just
you gotta
stream their solo queue, right? Like, it's, I've done my scrims, I'll stream for 4 hours as I play my 8 solo queue games for the day or something, right? I'm not saying it's viable, I'm just saying that's when people used to do it most of the time.
I do need to tell you that, I mean, I streamed after scrims sometimes, but I've never really understood how some people can do it consistently, because I would be so dead after finishing scrims. Like, usually for me, most League teams in the past, I don't know about now, but in the past would have like certain streaming requirements, because obviously generating viewership and hype and fandom is part of what pays your salary. And I would usually spend my day off doing so. Like you said, you have stuff to do 6 days a week. In reality, it's actually 7, because the 7th day that is supposedly your day off, usually before that day, you receive a list from your coach of champions you have to practice going into the first day of scrims. There can be streaming requirements. There can be team activities. There can be content or sponsor obligations. So you don't have a life. you just straight up don't have a life. Honestly, that's one of the things that kind of broke me after the years that, the burnout just came in pretty hot at some point, and I needed a break. But for the same reason, some of the guys like Yankos or Huli that have done it in forever and are still going at it, I really respect, because it's a tough lifestyle.
Yeah, I don't know how Whippo just sits there and like he talks 24/7 and like bounces in his chair when he plays, and I don't know how he streams the solo queue games after like a day. He's high energy. I don't know how he does that. So props to him.
I don't know how anyone streams solo queue games. Like I am not gonna lie. Okay, like solo queue. I'm talking about it from the perspective of an AD carry that doesn't play Smolder. How do you play solo queue? Because what is going on? We've seen it particularly on the LEC this week, where it's like every single game it was just like a Smolder diff, but it doesn't feel like that's just specific to the LEC. It was like all around the world. Medic, when this champ came out, it was like great time.
Yeah, champ's fucking busted.
Hey,
who knew?
Zeri 2.0, let's go.
I mean, it's not even that. Like, he hit 25 pentakills in 500 games. Kai'Sa took 1,800 games, and Zeri took 1,900 games. Yep. So he's 3 times faster at getting a pentakill. And part of that is it's very easy to get a pentakill on the champ. Like, it's not button intensive. It's not skill intensive. You stand behind your front line. You make sure you have... Wait, actually, no, it is hard because you have to be able to count to 225. I forgot about that bit, which
That's
is a
more
bit
than
of a
100.
challenge.
Yeah.
If
You gotta
count to
find the Q
225,
button.
yeah,
Find the Q
you
button.
stand behind your team, you press Q, the entire enemy dies from like
Wow.
10% HP. And then the more stacks you get, the higher the execute threshold is. Like if you have 400 stacks, the execute threshold goes up to, I think it's 12% in total. And that's just like, that's almost an Elder Dragon, which is the game-ending buff, by the way. Like,
I mean, it
Elder
is a
Dragon
baby
was
dragon.
introduced to the game to be like, if someone gets this, they win the game. And all you have to do is pick this fucking champion. And why don't people bat? Oh man, no, I hate this champ so much. It is so dumb. I just no, I can't even. It is so frustrating to think that this champ exists and that it was released in the fashion it was, and then it's been nerfed 4 times since it came out, and then there was a hotfix that came in, and why can't we play on the hotfix? Oh, because the teams might complain that they can't play Smolder. Just fucking accept that you can't stand behind your backline and press Q and expect a pentakill. AD carries are the most mollycoddled pieces of...
Oh, no, wait, hold the phone. Hold the phone.
Smolder players. Actually, no, you're right. Not AD carries, Smolder players.
No,
There.
80 carry players.
No.
80 carry players. I'm in. I'm on board. Like, I'm doubling down.
You're a jungler. It doesn't even matter, okay?
Oh, no, it does.
If we lose the game, it's because of you.
No, when
matters a
Jarvan's
lot.
meta, listen to your AD when Jarvan's meta, man. Every AD wants Jarvan gone. Stuff like this, they need it in draft, you know? They must not be able to play against Jarvan.
Just ban Smolder. Why is it not banned? I think that's my number one question coming into this here, and I've got to throw it to you, Broxah, because like, why is that thing not banned? Why was it open?
Because teams are very confident that they can beat it before 20 minutes going into the game, and that's realistically what you have to do.
LEC,
it's like a Kassadin or a Kale, but on absolute steroids. And I think it's an ego thing more than anything. Because the truth is,
Yeah.
in NA and EU, games are generally pretty slow. Or even if it's not slow, even if the team has a huge lead, we saw that this past weekend, they're just going to throw it and do some crazy stuff, and then the Smolder team is always going to come back and be useful. And that's kind of the problem. Like, they're just not going to be convincing enough to actually shut it down, because the champion is pretty useless in the early game. Like, you get a decent spike at 125 stacks, but you're still kind of a minion. But then at 225, you're a literal god. Like, you're the strongest champion of all time. And I think it's really obnoxious in pro play for a lot of reasons. But I also think the design actually worries me a lot, because this champion is going to be near impossible to balance, I feel like. Even if comparing pro to solo queue, or a good solo queue Smolder to a bad one, I've seen Smolders get to 225 stacks before 20 minutes.
Yep.
But half of the Smolders I see also needs 30 or 35 minutes to hit 225 stacks, and I don't even know how that's possible. And that's in versus Master, Grandmaster, and Challenger players, by the way. Like, how are they going to put this champion in a state where
Elo is just a number,
where it's not broken
Yours
in
is
pro,
low.
and where it's still viable in silver, you know? Like, you cannot balance it. It's impossible.
Yep.
It's funny because, like, I think the other AD that just has a kit that just, like, makes me just so angry is Senna, and that's the other one that's just dominating the meta right now.
What's she supposed to be a support?
No,
she
I mean,
was 80 first, support second.
Senna's kit, it's such a disgusting kit. Like, you have a global, you have a line heal, you have CC, you have scaling range, and then you have a little circle where you have to be within 300 units to interact with everything. Like, how is this champ put in the game? Like, it does everything that you want, and I don't know. For me, I actually think, like, unironically, I do think that you can get to a world where Smolder's numbers are low, and then he's range gated. And I think that, like, you have to keep on kind of punching down, because obviously this champ is a massive problem, and I think everyone's really tired of seeing this thing just pick up, like, pentakills like they're candy. But I have, like, I kind of like what Brox is saying. Like, I have a fundamental issue with Smolder, and also more so Senna's kit. Like, this champ is just a problem, and I think that Senna's cool. I like the idea that, like, you can have an AD that augments how you can play support. Like, Kallista's a great champ for that in League of Legends. But the fact that Senna has the kit that she does, like, I think something has to fundamentally change, like, with that champ moving forward, or else, like, it will always be broken and make its way into pro.
I have a suggestion. Delete it from the game. Same with Yuumi. Just get it out of the game. Like, I mean, Yumi's like nerfed to the ground now. I don't think it matters that much. But like, it's the same thing. Like upon release, it just like breaks the whole fundamental of playing a support where you need to position properly and stay in the back line so that you're safe and you can heal your teammates. But no, you just like fucking glue to your fucking bruiser, go fucking head first into the other team, and yay, we're all gonna survive.
Yeah. Oh, I have a suggestion too.
Yeah.
Like and subscribe. That's it.
Nice. There we go.
You did it.
Solid.
Congratulations. I'm so proud of you.
I just think any AD carry that has infinite stacking is always going to be a problem, because especially in pro play, it's just abusable, right? Like Senna in solo queue is difficult to deal with, but she's like manageable if you play well around her, unless she's a good Senna. But like in pro play, we just saw when Rekkles was playing it in LEC, follow the jungler around, do a full clear with your jungler, get 20 stacks. Excellent. Oh, I get more crit from that and more range. Amazing. Smolder.
Smash.
Okay, what do we do? Well, we spend the 20 minutes we have with pre-recorded drafts talking about how we protect Smolder and how we get all these melees just to walk into him so he gets all of his skills off for free. It's just like, in the end, if you give any champion infinite scaling, they're likely to be a problem unless they're heavily like nerfed. But AD carries especially, because they have a support there, and because all the AD carries with infinite scaling, you give them a fucking dash for no reason, by the way. But yeah, because they have a support there, it's a lot harder to punish an AD carry because they always have someone to protect them.
Oh, so you just want AD carries to be immobile, but they need to play safe under tower while you go roam?
Look, I'm sorry. If there is a second champion in your lane and you are the carry, yes, you should be low mobility. You shouldn't have a way to get over a wall for free.
They're also always going on an adventure.
That's good, though. Supports have too much power at the moment because they can be anywhere on the map, because AD carries are too safe by themselves. Like, I'm a support main. I think I shouldn't be able to roam top level 3, get a kill, go mid, get a kill, come back to bottom. My AD carry is still safe. They should be punished. So AD carries don't give them a dash for no apparent reason where they can fly over 3 walls, Zeri, Smolder, and then make them be low mobility, so I have to stay in that fucking lane and deal with them. I'm happy to babysit. I just want the champion I'm babysitting to actually be a baby rather than be something that can just 1v5 at minute 20.
You know what the worst part is?
Free elo.
No, but the worst part is that Smolder actually has the power of a literal minion for the first 20 minutes of the game. So it's even harder to babysit than any other champion. Like, I'm actually playing 4v5 as a jungler for the first 20 minutes of the game, trying to drag this goddamn AD carry to the point where they're a champion. And just for them to half of the time run it down and solo lose the game anyways. In solo queue, that is. In pro, it's a different story.
Yeah.
And we've been seeing Smolder like everywhere. And obviously, like, we're bringing up the LEC because the LEC is like very much fresh on our minds. But the LEC in general, what we've seen was not just the changes in Smolder. We had a lot of questions, and I think everybody and their grandma had a lot of questions in terms of how Heretics was going to be performing on the LEC with the changes that they've come through. And I'm gonna say it. I'm low key impressed.
Yeah. I will say, as an NA fan, I just want to say I did my homework yesterday. I watched 28 VODs between NA and EU. Wow. And EU had better gameplay this week. And it was because Heretics and KC, I think, really stepped up. And G2 played really well.
Yeah, KC was really good.
Yeah, I actually was like really impressed with Heretics. Like, I forget I think it was their last game where they were down. They toppled. Oh, God, I'm getting confused now. They came back in one of their games. They ended up playing really, really well.
Against Fnatic, it was.
Yes, against Fnatic. The Fnatic game was actually like really impressive. I think Fnatic had like one poor deploy, but the way the Heretics was able to punish is really good. And man, I love watching Jankos play League of Legends, man. This guy is so fun to watch. Like, he's so creative with like how he's able to find angles, find timers, and like how he's able to execute too. I was really impressed with how like him and Heretics were able to play week 1. I'm really excited to actually like see them moving forward. It feels like they have just a more unified voice, and I don't know if I'm going to credit mid or support for that, but either way, I'm happy to see it from them.
I think it also needs to be said, and I'm just going to say it briefly and quickly, and then we move on, but the way Fnatic lost that game was really embarrassing, and it should never have happened. But you still do have to give praise for Heretics for actually capitalizing on the mistake and having better team play and coordination, but Fnatic losing in that way is the entire problem with Europe and the reason we can't win internationally. Okay, I'll move on.
We need to bring Broxah
you can't move on. I'm sorry.
How does a top team throw that game? Like, it pains me. I'm in physical pain just thinking about how it happened.
Gromping Joya? I love Gromps. We've got to fight over Gromps.
Well, you know, Broxah,
content.
Smolder was in the game, so, you know.
Smolder.
I think Smolder obviously is strong and all. I think generally for Heretics, like you said, Jankos is playing amazing. I think he was a top jungler in the first week.
He's so fun.
Top 3 for sure so far. But I also think, if I am to be fully objective, I don't think the mid lane change has done anything. I don't think it's any of the reason as to why they're looking better. I just think that team playing coordination overall was pretty good, and I think he was fine, but it's not like he carried or made a huge difference in any game. He just went even and he was there. I think Flagged, kind of similar story. Wonder was also great. I think one thing that was clear to me watching from the outside is that the communication on Heretics is actually really clear. Like, you can see in a lot of the fights that they take that mid and AD carry are not the vocal ones. Like, they're probably silent when fights are about to start because their needs are not really being taken into account. In a lot of these games, Flagged especially was really fit. And then you see Wonder or Trimby or Jankos or whoever, like one of these 3 veterans just jumping in like literal maniacs. The AD carry is being left out to dry, and then all of a sudden they throw the game away. It even happened versus Fnatic as they were coming back. Like, they dove really deep on the mid inhib, and then poor Flagged and Smolder, who's a literal raid boss, just dies because they're not playing around him. And I think that's a big issue. Like, while their team playing coordination is better, and they are generally on the same page, they need to work on how to play around their carries, because a good team in mid and late game needs to be able to utilize the big leads that they're generating in especially AD carry.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think I will give credit to Sviru. I was expecting him to be okay, and I think he was a little bit above okay. Like, he found a couple of good engages in the Nico game, had that game winning, I mean, they were kind of winning the game anyway, that 3-man knock-up over the Dragon Wall. So after game 1, I was really doubtful that he'd be any good. And then he stepped up a little bit. So I think for a debut, a solid 7 out of 10. But I think Trimby is really the addition that is changing that team. He has always been super vocal. And you can tell in team fights they are just a bit more on the same page, at least with how they want to go in. As Maz said, like, sometimes they abandon their AD carry to do so, but sometimes you just need a player saying, hey, let's go. And someone who can do that alongside Jankos for Heretics is definitely encouraging. I wonder whether it will continue through the rest of the split. It might, but it's hard to tell from just 3 games whether or not this is like Heretics revitalized or whether it's a honeymoon phase. We had a good week. Now teams will start playing a little bit more around the fact that Trimby's going to be going for these aggressive engagers.
One thing that I liked is that you could actually clearly see the improvement from game 1 to 3. Like, game 1 was really sloppy. Trimby constantly died after bad engages, and they were not on point at all. Game 2, they looked really solid, but they were also against Rogue, who is like the clear bottom team right now. But still, like, they were on point.
Pretty sure my team would look good against Rogue at the moment.
True. And then Fnatic, like, back and forth, but at least, you know, they won partly due to, you know, being on the same page and playing well as a team. And I also think for Sviru, like, he definitely had a pretty solid debut, but he's also in the unfortunate position that he's replacing Perkz, so expectations naturally are going to be really high. And I also think, I mean,
are they though?
Back, I would say so. Like, if you're replacing Perkz, in my opinion, you need to be really damn good. I mean, sure, we were pretty harsh on Perkz in the first episode of the podcast.
Who's we?
But I definitely was. I think a few of us were, for a good reason. Like, he's, you know, one of the greatest players we've had from the West, so we expect nothing other than greatness from him. And when he's just doing decent, that's not good enough. And I don't know, like, I actually, as a fan of the league, I still think it's such a shame that Perk is no longer on the team, and I would really have liked to see if he could redeem himself, and with Trimby coming in and with them being on the same page, what would he look like? But at the same time, having someone else coming in, you know, getting a chance is not a bad thing. It's just, man, he has to be good if he is to replace Perkz, in my opinion.
I get that. I do want to come back to that point about us being a bit harsh on Perkz last week. I think we were valid in what we said about his gameplay, But having had more information come out since we recorded the episode, I want to say I'm not 100% on board with why Heretics let him go. From what I can tell, the conjecture and the rumor at the moment is he had a disagreement with a general manager about how to play a lane. And then the GM said, oh, you disagreed with me and you're fighting with me, you're fired. And that's just like, that's so ludicrous to me that you would kick like one of the greatest players from Europe of all time out of your team because you as a general manager, not even as a coach, disagree with him. So I think Zviru, he's doing a good job filling the boots for the moment. Obviously, he's not at the level Perkz was, in 2019, etc. But he seems to be gelling well with the team. But just now that more information's come out, I think it's important that we note that at least I don't agree with why he was let go.
Yeah. I mean, there's this thing called stay in your lane.
As a support, I have no idea what you're talking about.
I feel like a lot of people need to imply that both in-game and IRL, but I think that's really concerning because like we also had a little bit of a discussion last time around in terms of like managers or coaches having that opportunity to kind of like tell players, okay, like calm down, sit down, show some respect. But I feel like that's a two-way street, right? If you want respect, you also have to give it. And the thing with esports in general, and I'm talking about this from a talent perspective, I'm sure it's like 10 times more intense from a player perspective. Every single show day, every single match day, it's just really intense. There's a lot of stress. There is not like 99% of the time, everything's going wrong and you're just like taping everything together as you go along. And of course, like emotions are going to play a really big part on these days for talent. I'm assuming for players too. So yeah, sometimes people are going to do an oopsie, and it would be nice if that could be talked out and been like, okay, well, I did this and I apologize. And then the other person goes, yeah, I did that too. I apologize too. And then hold hands and sprint into the sunset.
A hug and make up, I think that's a great example of a press conference in Formula One where Hamilton had called Verstappen a dickhead in the middle of a race, right? Like Verstappen had pushed him off the road. Hamilton was like, oh, you dickhead, over the radio. And a journalist said, hey, is that appropriate language for you to be using? And Vettel is sitting next to Hamilton. He says, look, mate, we're going round a track at 200 miles an hour. We're going under 9Gs regularly on the corner. I think we can excuse Hamilton for saying dickhead in the heat of the moment, right? Like, and that's in the public eye as well. Whereas this is something privately, and you wonder whether, like, as you say, it should just be a hug and make up eventually. Or, you don't interact with each other, but you're not the coach if you're the GM. You're just the GM. Or, I mean, you are the GM. You're the GM. You're not the coach, right? So should you be firing someone for playing a lane not the way that you thought they should play the lane?
Honestly, like at that point, has this person ever really saw a League of Legends solo queue chat log?
I mean, from what I know, the player, like the guy was a very popular player. So he understands League of Legends. It's just, even if you do understand League of Legends, is that your role in the team? Right? Is the question.
I think you also need to keep in mind, and this is something that I quickly learned when joining Fnatic, that from the outside, as viewers and fans, we often feel like we know exactly what's happening on each team. But I quickly found out that we know not even 20% of what's happening inside those teams. Like, we have access to nothing. Like in Formula One, you can hear their voice comms. You actually have more of a point of view into what's going on, and even then we don't have the full story. But in League, we know nothing. Like, we see these guys play for half an hour on stage, and they have, they spend like more than 50 hours together every week. In this particular case, I can't say whether Perkz being benched was reasonable or not, because it depends on exactly what happened backstage. But I have seen times in the past where, there was screaming and yelling and insults flying back and forth between players or coaches or managers or whatever, and wildly unreasonable things happened and nothing happened. And with that in mind,
you punch Rekkles at some point, Broxah?
Whoa, actually,
that's a good old meme.
Messed up.
I'm not going to dive into that.
Wait, did this actually happen? Can someone give me the tea?
It was all on Reddit. I saw like 6 Reddit threads about it back in 2019.
I mean, if it's on Reddit, then it's true, right?
Exactly.
Like, of course.
Must be.
I have to say, and I hope
he deserved
Martin,
it.
if you hear this, do not hate me. But I remember when the meme started and the discussions were happening surrounding it. And I think I went on Reddit. Yeah, that was my first mistake, I know. But then the top comment was, if they actually had a fist fight, Rekkles wouldn't even be alive right now. and I gotta say, not to brush my own ego, but I thought that was pretty funny, and it clearly is proof that I'm a good boy. Like and subscribe, by the way. Thank you.
I'm pretty sure that's why he went to Korea.
So you
isn't it?
actually
you said you were going to
punched
punch him again?
You think I'm gonna punch someone? Like what?
How did you know that if you had a fist fight with Rekkles, he wouldn't survive?
Bench press.
How did you find that out?
I wouldn't know. Reddit knows, and Reddit is always right.
Reddit is true. Reddit is always
Broxah is
right.
actually the reason that Soaz broke his hand as well. He was trying to block one of Broxah's punches aimed at Rekkles, right? So.
No, please.
Oh, Fnatic top laners and breaking hands, man. Name a more iconic.
Oh yeah, because Oscar did it as well. It's like
Yeah,
history
it's-
repeating
It was
itself.
Broxah's
The
fault
curse.
too.
You visit the org that week, Broxah, or?
Yeah, what were you doing?
True.
They were about to play up against Team Liquid, and Broxah took it into his own hands.
Yeah, we gotta get this sorted.
Quite
not on
literally.
my watch.
Oh, God. How did we even get here? Like,
I have no idea, but you know what? Great. I'm glad to know that you actually didn't go around punching people, because that'd be really,
As far as we know.
concerning. As far as
He
we
told
know.
us that we only know 20% of the stuff that's happening.
I mean, he's working in talent now. If
He's done great
anyone
brand work
ever
with Thank You,
in
Mr.
talent-
Broxah. Yeah.
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 You know, you're on the LEC often. You know, if anyone ever gets injured, and it's like, oh, there was an accident. You
Oh,
know,
no.
that's all I'm gonna say. But either way, LEC.
Yeah.
Welcome to the jungle.
what the fuck?
Yo, I'm just the host, man. I'm not
Jungle
getting into
camps.
fist fights, I think. All right. Like and subscribe, I guess, for more of this kind of shit. But either way, we're looking at the LEC. We've kind of discussed Heretics and how they've been doing well. We talked about the pick of Smolder, particularly. I know there was another pick that you really wanted to scratch Broxah's brain for, Cubby. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Tank. Okay, so I like watching a lot of League across the world. I've noticed LEC, they have this obsession with tank junglers. I don't know, like, I have nothing against tank junglers. I'm just noticing, like, every game it's like, oh wow, it's Sejuani versus Rel, or oh wow, it's Voldiver versus Rel. Like, there's a lot of Rel flexes going on, and there ends up being a lot
Rel
of
what,
Zeri,
sorry?
I think, because of it.
Like
Rel-
A Rel flex, yeah.
Oh,
you can
I
flex or
heard
support.
something else.
Oh no. I don't know. Like, do you think it's good? Like, do you think LEC's ahead of this? Is it just like region, like what they prefer? I'm kind of curious if you have like, any thoughts. Because personally, like,
So
I see first pick Talia, and I'm like, where's the Vi? Like, I feel like Vi is like being really deprioritized.
So back in my young days in 2021, when I played for a fantastic North American team called CLG, and we were losing every game and everything was a disaster, we found a strategy, and the strategy was pretty simple. It was called Vi Galio. You know what was so great about it? It required no brain, no mechanics, no coordination or team play. You had one go button, everybody froze everything they have at the enemy team and hope for the best. And I think this is not the exact same, but it's similar. You know, we're seeing a lot of Rel and Vi, we're seeing Sejuani, and these comps are just so simple and easy to execute because you have somebody with a go button. The moment they press the button, everybody else follows. You play front to back, and everybody knows their job within that. And I mean, the Sejuani has been horrible. It's lost like 5 out of 6 games, so that's not particularly great. Rel and Vi are doing really well. But Rel and Vi are not only performing in Europe, in other regions too. I just think the difference is that once those aren't in the picture anymore, or once you have to go outside of that duo, LCK and LPL would generally go towards strong fighting champions like Xin Zhao or Viego or Lee Sin or anything similar with a lot of aggression. But while that is great, it's also a lot harder to execute, and there's a lot that can go wrong. And I think a pattern we've seen in the LEC generally, both last year but also this year, is that teams aren't the cleanest in the early game. There's a lot of random things that are happening early game, and even if you win early, there's a high chance of throws. And I think just having your jungler being like a stable tank with easy to execute abilities makes it really easy for everybody else to know their job within that. Because sure, I would love to see more Lee and whatnot, but often when we do see other things, I guess with the exception being Jankos completely smurfing on lead this weekend, it doesn't look particularly great because the execution is just not on point.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also think, coming back to Smolder, if you play a tank jungler, it's a lot easier to make sure Smolder gets to 225 stacks.
Yeah.
Like you can wait the game out, right?
Yeah.
And even with Zeri, right?
True.
Front to back is a very good strategy for a team with a hyper-scaling AD carry. And it feels like we came into this week, after having the week break, with most of the teams saying, yeah, okay, we ascribe to the front-to-back philosophy. We're not going to do a huge amount. Maybe we'll find a few ganks in the early game, but more it's about neutralizing the enemy team. And then at 20 minutes, we'll start playing the game, and we'll do fighting, and we'll do stuff. And any team that hasn't done that, well, some of the teams that haven't done that, like picking Kalista Ashe in the bot lane, they tend to be failing as well. Obviously, there's a skill discrepancy. I think it was Rogue that picked the Kalista Ashe, and they really struggled with it. Oh, no, that was Kalista Nort? Anyway, sometimes there's a skill discrepancy, but I think teams in the LEC at the moment have bought into 14-5 is the scaling AD carry patch, so we're just going to play scaling AD carry with a tank and probably a mid lane mage. And in other regions, because you haven't had that same break, it's a bit easier for them to be like, oh, on 14-4 we played a lot of Xin Zhao. We could just keep playing Xin Zhao, when these tanks are banned away. There's also, like, as Broxah says, some regions just like to do 2v2 mid jungle a little bit more, and we're not playing that as much in the LEC right now.
Yeah.
I think the interesting part is that, like, even if they are to log in something like a Varus or a Kalista, it's still going to be the same tank junglers that are being picked, right? Like, they're always going to opt into that. And obviously, generally, having these lockdown kind of champions is good, even with aggression. But I definitely would like to see more flexibility, because there's certainly room to, do well in other picks too.
We just need Milky Way. Just bring Milky Way into the region. We tried it with Bo. It kind of failed for a year. Now he's looking good again. If we get Milky Way as well.
Wow.
Just steal all the FPX junglers,
Is that then something that we have to keep looking forward to when it comes to the LEC? Like, are we just like
importing good players from other regions?
I mean, maybe we'll finally
That's what we do in NA. Come on. That's our
NA style.
I mean, it's not going that great for NA either, so I don't know, Sorry.
I don't know. I found it like being an interesting trend, So I was kind of, I get a chance to pick Brox's brain here. I might as well take up on it.
Wow.
Yeah, it was interesting to me. I also the Karmas we saw there. I think the first game I watched was like Karma Volley, and I was like, oh god, this is it was Karma Sedge. It was a Karma top Volley, and I'm like, these are not the pairings.
I mean,
that's not a real draft for sure. Just when you see stuff like that, just realize that somebody got paid to put that draft together.
Yeah, and then sat for 20 minutes before the game thinking, fuck. Well, that's what we need. We need a coach cam for bad drafts with pre-recorded drafts. And
you guys use a lot of coach cams. You can add that.
Yeah.
Like the Big Brother house.
Do we still do that now with pre-recorded drafts? I don't think I've seen a coach cam for drafts ever.
No, because they're on the stage with the players. We do coach cam during the game, but I would like in Big Brother when they used to have those confession rooms, and you'd go in and they'd be sitting in a beanbag chair and they'd look into the camera and they'd be like, "Today I swore at whatever." They'd reveal their secrets. Do you watch Big Brother? It was probably before
Absolutely
your time,
not.
Ginny. Okay, so it was a show where you put like 10 people in a house. I didn't really watch it, but
Is
it was
this
a big
like
thing.
your version of MILF Hunter?
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
It was like original reality TV.
Big Brother's
You'd
great,
put 10 people in a house, they'd all be locked in there, and they'd have to do tasks and such, and then one by one they'd get voted out. So there was a confession room where people would go into it, there'd be a camera there, and they'd confess something they'd done to the camera. So they'd be like, I'm in a relationship, but I slept with Jackie last night, or whatever, right? So we should have that for coaches. And it's like, yeah, Zviru really pissed me off this week. So I drafted him Sejuani Karma. He's just really annoyed me.
Dude, this was a TV show in the 2000s. 1999 was when it first aired. Bro, I was... Yeah, no.
You're just a little sperm swimming around.
My roommate...
I didn't want to say that. But I wasn't. I was actually living, breathing, barely in 1999. Yeah.
I had a roommate who had like a fantasy league around that game. Like him and his buddies would like draft people on Big Brother, and they get points for like how far they went.
I mean, that just sounds fun.
It was
how a drinking game alongside it.
I wasn't in on it, but like they were like watching and like in a call and like they looked like they were having a blast, you know.
So MILF Hunters.
No, I was gonna say I take this over the
All of
MILF
us?
Hunter discussion every single time of the day. Like what?
True.
Honestly. But either way, like I think the draft is like really interesting topic here, especially when we're looking at the fact that we have pre-recorded drafts now. Everybody and their mother wants to play Smolder, and then we have tank jungles. Is there anything coming into next week that we are looking forward to besides the fact that we're just gonna look at the draft and just like have a tier rundown?
Yes. KC. Bo has been
KC?
smurfing. I think
True.
KC
Yep.
coming back, being aggressive, being decisive, actually playing as a team has been really cool. And I think they've just been really fun to watch because Bo just plays like a maniac and he kills a lot of people, but he also dies a lot. But at least he makes things happen. And what I like about it is that his team actually follows him. Like they're aggressive together. And that's not something I really remember happening since Bo came to Europe. Like usually he would just be trying, then eventually it looked like he would just lose faith and kind of give up and become a bit more slow and passive. But now he's really finding his style with everybody else following him.
Yeah.
And
Oh, keep going. Sorry.
You go.
Oh, sorry, Brock. I was gonna say like I want to give props to Cabochard. I feel like Cabochard was really rough. Like had a really rough winter split, and I saw him like really kind of buying in. Like he was going for some crazy plays this week, but some of them worked, or like some of them led to 1-for-1s, 1-for-2s. Like ended up trading up. I feel like he's kind of buying into this with the rest of KC.
Yeah. Totally agree. I think Cabochard's had a big level up because he was a key point of weakness for Karmine Corp in winter. I think Targamas is still struggling a little bit. Some of his decision making seems a bit off, but if you only have 1 point of weakness on a team that in winter had like 5,
That's great.
it's a big evolution for the team.
W's in the shot. Like honestly, I mean they're doing really great. It does. I think I agree with Broxah. Like when we were looking at Karmine Corp right now, it does feel like they're all on the same page when it comes to like what they want to do. There's a lot of time in winter. It's like one would be aggressive and then the other one's like sitting there fiddling their thumbs or I don't know what they're doing. But either way, like it looks really good. And the fact that they also got a win in their first week, you're not on the 0-3 like mental.
Well,
So that's
not
always
only
good.
not only that, but they were stomping G2 in the early game.
I
in the first game.
know,
Like
but
they
that's
were
G2 early
nuking
game,
them,
like-
destroying them, making them look like a bottom team. And I think they just had really good team play in that game. But then again, the aggression and overforcing was also the reason they lost, as well as G2 abusing Smolder. So I would consider the KC win. Like Smolder is just not fair. We can just leave it.
It's like Smolder Pentas don't count. Any win with Smolder doesn't count. If you lose with Smolder, it counts double. I think that's fair, right?
We should
Yeah,
introduce
reasonable.
that. Absolutely. I think that would be a really fair way. I also just like ban it. I don't want to see it. You know?
Yeah, but then
Like,
you have to waste a ban on it, you know?
What do you mean? You waste a ban or you waste a loss? Like pick your poison. You know?
I don't know. We've seen it lose 3 times in the LEC. It must not be as busted as we're all talking about. Right?
Maybe it's just like only busted when you actually know how to play the game.
Yeah.
Couldn't be me though. Couldn't be me. But speaking of knowing how to play the game, let's talk about the LCS.
Oh wow, some props in
Funniest
it.
transition you're ever gonna hear.
All right.
No, wait. Until we beat them in MSI, I have no loyalty to any region. Okay.
No. I'm sorry. You can't
I'm
take
wearing
away
the
your
LEC.
loyalty.
I'm wearing
You
the
can-
LEC.
You're in the
Can't do
losership
that.
right now, Jenny. It's
you,
fine.
You literally said until we beat them at MSI.
until-
you're loyal to EU.
Until
We're just worse than
League
them
of
until
Legends
we win.
EMEA Championship beats what does LCS stand for?
League
Championship Series.
Where's NA in there?
What?
Uh,
It's North
Why is
America.
there no
Why would they
NA?
name anything after themselves? They are the world. You have the World Series in baseball.
True. NBA World
The
Series.
Super Bowl, the biggest
yeah.
bowl ever. You don't
Yeah.
need NA in it
Bowl
there. Everyone
soup.
knows it's NA. It's like being on
Yeah.
Reddit. You say something like, that's not how it works in Alabama. It's like, well, I'm in Germany, so perhaps there is a world
That's
outside
your
of this.
fault. Yeah, geography definitely not their strongest thing. But let's talk about the LCS here because something that you really hyped up last week, Cubby, was the fact that 100 Thieves was a team that you're looking forward to play. You wanted to see them in the playoffs. They made your dreams come true, and against no other than C9.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I'm really excited for this matchup because I like when two different styles clash. And I think that there's a lot of good storylines that go into this. Like, first off, C9 is a super team that they're the lower seed coming into this match. 100 Thieves, they're a team that I had power ranked 8th going into the season, and they are 2nd in the standings, featuring 2 rookies that have actually looked pretty damn good, and a team that like Quid massively underperformed last summer. He's probably the second best mid that we have in the league. River's been a beast. Ayla has stepped up. I think that this team has been really fun to kind of watch come together. They also play high octane League of Legends. I think they're averaging the most kills and deaths out of like they have the most kills in their games globally, like between like major regions, which I mean, I know that the coach of 100 Thieves, Golden Glue, is really proud of that because like he's just kind of letting the boys play. And it's done them a lot of favors. Like I think that this team actually team fights really well towards the later stages of the game. I will say though, like there are some holes in their early game, and they have one of the weaker early games in like LCS, and C9's early game has been a strong suit of theirs. So I think it's gonna be really interesting if C9 kind of beat the like expectations that they like, or reach the expectations that they should have been reaching throughout the split. And then 100 Thieves also, like it would be a really big statement for them to take down the super team and prove like, hey, you know, like we aren't just a young team, like we aren't just second regular season, we're actually here to play and compete. I think it's going to be a really exciting best of 5 on Thursday.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I'm really interested in top because Fudge for so long, and this is like very much on the outside looking in with LCS, right? For so long, he's talked about how he's like this great player who knows how to play every matchup, and part of it as well is, you know, you hear him talking to analysts and such, so you see him in other places other than just the LCS, and he knows how to play every matchup, and he understands the lane much better than anyone else in NA, and that can all be true, but Sniper at the moment is in the form of his life, right? Obviously, we've only seen him for a split, so whether or not this form continues forever is debatable, but that top lane matchup, just, it is rare, apart from it international or LCK LPL sometimes, that you see a top lane matchup that you think could decide a series. And I really think this top lane matchup could just decide whether or not 100 Thieves or C9 win.
I'm 100% with you. I find it funny too that like there have been a lot of top laners in the league that have really like kind of trash talk Sniper on the way up. Like, oh, he's actually, you know, not that good, or his champion pool is a little small. And Sniper is definitely in the position where he's learning, and I will give him a lot of credit. I think that as a rookie stepping into top lane and playing up against players like Impact, that is hard. Like you are not going to be on the same level as them. Top has a lot of soft skills, like how you manage a wave, like how you play map. That's really difficult to manage as a rookie. I think he's done an okay job, but Sniper is going to overextend on lanes. Like he will overextend and he will die to ganks. He's punishable. And I think the top lane's interesting because I want to see if C9 can actually fulfill like what a lot of top laners have been saying, like, hey, we can beat this guy. And I'm curious if he gets the Summit treatment, as we like to call it here in NA, because Summit had some really good regular seasons, and then all of a sudden, playoffs, like, they'd ban out 2 or 3 of his champs, they'd camp him, so he wouldn't like be able to actually play up and play aggressive and take advantage of his really strong laning phase, and all of a sudden, like, he's behind, the team kind of falls apart, and then Summit teams would lose. And I'm curious if that happens with 100 Thieves. I think it's something that I'd like to see a lot of teams follow through on what they've been saying about Sniper, that he is punishable. I think that he will overextend on sides. You can find kills up top against 100 Thieves. They're okay with that. And Sniper, to be fair to him, has delivered like in the later stages of the game with fights, despite taking a few waves that he shouldn't. So I'm really interested about that lane as well.
I would personally be surprised if C9 doesn't find a way to punish 100 Thieves in the early game at least, because I think they're just straight up like a much better early game team. It's always been a strong suit of C9, including this year, and they're showing it like across the board. They play incredible in the first 15 minutes. My biggest worry for them is going to be what happens in the later stages. And like you said, can they punish a sniper who's like out of position? Are they actually going to have the type of coordination that we need to see from them to take a lead and utilize it into something bigger and get a win off of it? And yeah, that for me is a big question mark, because I think early game, like I would take C9 any day of the week, but mid-late, I don't really know if they can do it. I don't know what to expect from them. But at the same time, I also think fixing macro stuff generally should be easier than fixing early game. Like if you have a team that just gets stomped every early game, it's really hard to work with because you never get to practice mid and late. Whereas for C9, usually they have control of the game, so it just comes down to playing smarter by the book, to make the right decisions, to not give the enemy team a chance to come back. And I think once they get the hang of that, they are going to be really hard to stop.
Yeah, it's also the thing that you practice the most, right? The early game. Because you do it in every solo queue game is the same in terms of, okay, I'll be in my lane for the first 10 minutes and then we'll start moving out and doing stuff. And there's every now and again, you'll be like, oh, when's the jungle going to gank? When's this going to happen? It changes in pro play. But the majority of the time, if you're practicing in solo queue, it's early game and then you can practice your positioning in fights or something, not full macro.
The funny thing too is like the scrim bucks at the moment. 100 Thieves for the entire split have been pretty abysmal in scrims, and apparently like they do get blown out in early game. And we have seen them like really pull it together on stage and have really, really good fights. I think that like every member on that team's had a moment where they've really stepped up and like been able to turn a game around, or like take a game where they had a small lead and turn it into a big one. So it's definitely something that like teams know they can beat them in early game, and I'm just kind of curious to see if in a best of 5 they can actually do it.
How much do you think actually having the pre-recorded drafts will affect 100 Thieves? Because you have like Meech and Sniper who've only had 20 minutes before, like they haven't had the 1 minute time, at least at the LCS level.
I think it matters a bit. I'm curious, like, I mean, I don't know like what the teams talk about, but obviously like that staff, Spooks was part of Golden Guardians last year, who did pretty well, and Golden Glue is a former player. And, you know, is someone that I watched coach a lot of teams in Challengers League, and he had really strong teams that, funnily enough, kind of had a similar identity to what they do now, which is, you know, free up the lads and let them fight. I think that it will, like, I'd be just giving credit to those two and the staff that 100 Thieves have. I think it will have a little bit of an impact. And I mean, you think about stage experience, C9 has a whole wealth of that over 100 Thieves. So I am interested to see if that actually ends up being a factor in this series.
Yeah, and it would be interesting to see, because then obviously it feels like we are on the LEC kind of like a step behind when it comes to the LCS to these pre-recorded drafts. So that will then, we're going to see it in our playoffs as well. When it comes to the LCS playoffs particularly, how are you expecting it to an extent to play out? I mean, we have NRG, Dignitas, Liquid, FlyQuest, and then C9 and 100 Thieves. So in terms of the teams that have the biggest chance of making a deep run, or actually like the two teams that you think have the biggest chance of qualifying to MSI, from an LCS expert kind of view, who would that be? I
think right now the sentiment is that it's kind of a 3-horse race, with FlyQuest, 100 Thieves, and C9 being the favorites to take the 2 MSI spots. And that's why I think this matchup's so interesting, because the loser also has to play NRG, who, of course, are defending champs and have been really underwhelming this split. I feel like
defending champs of knocking EU out?
I mean,
they won.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Sorry,
I appreciate
this is
that.
1647 all over again. You don't have to mention it every time it comes up.
Hold on.
No, but like, is that really a title though? Like, it's not a title. Like, you knocked EU out. So did the LPL.
Yeah, but they also won the LCS, right? They are their defending champs.
Yeah.
You guys ready for this? We have some live news from the time of recording. I just got pinged by an LCS ref because I had a
Okay, yeah, sure.
Oh, you're leaking. Let's go.
Azir confirmed disabled for all of LCS playoffs.
I mean, that makes sense. You're on 14-5, right?
Yeah, that's actually a big deal. Like, I think that actually really impacts C9. Because for me, JoJo, his champion pool is not an issue. But for me, Azir really helps meld the other C9 pools together. And it allows, like, Azir is something that can do a little bit of everything. It allows JoJo to pressure early. It allows JoJo to help Blabber. It allows JoJo to be a playmaker later on in the game. He's been a beast on Azir when he's had it this split. I think it actually impacts C9 the most out of all teams in playoffs, which might be a hot take because, you know, Jensen, Azir, Orianna memes are a thing. But I think that it really is a good champ for C9. And I think it's actually a pretty big deal that they don't get that.
Yeah.
I get that. For anyone that doesn't know the bug, if you EQ ult, you teleport halfway through your queue. So you'll E somewhere, and then you queue the soldier, so you'd follow the soldier usually, and then you ult, but then instead of going all the way smoothly, you like jump from one position to the other. So you have to ban it, because otherwise it looks like he just TPs behind you, says nothing personal kid, and then yeets you into his team, you know?
Well, it is personal, because he wants to yeet you into the team.
Wait, is that a reference you don't get?
No, I do get it. I just wanted to make it a little awkward, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, you're pretty good at that. So.
Yeah, that's literally why I'm here.
Yeah. I don't know. It's going to be a really interesting matchup. I mean, I think there's some great storylines. Like Mithy used to coach 100 Thieves. I think Quinn and JoJo have been like hands down the 2 top mid laners this split. River and Blabber last year, those were the 2 favorites for MVP. Personally, if I don't have a ballot, but if I did, River would probably be my MVP vote. And so it's like a chance for him to kind of get revenge because Blabber had it, won it last summer. And then, I mean, you get the young guns trying to take down the super team that's like not meeting expectations. I think it's actually a really, really fun playoff matchup. coming up. So excited.
Zoomers unite, stand up. That I love that. Well, you do say like younger players, so like in my head it's like Zoomers.
I mean, Sniper's 17, so
yeah,
he's mewing on stage. It's ridiculous. I didn't even. I had to learn that one. I didn't know that one. Yeah.
So would you say? I mean, a lot of hype around the C900 Thieves matchup, especially again because LCS is ahead. So this is playoffs. MSI slots are on the line here.
Mm-hmm.
This is the game of the week for you, particularly,
Yes.
Cubby. Is this like if any game you watch, and if there's anything you do with your life this week? I mean, hopefully you touch grass and take a shower. But would you also watch C900 Thieves?
I'm gonna touch grass because I'm going. I got a ticket, so I got to see that one in person. So I'm excited for that one.
Just walk up
You
to
could also
Cubby.
play Helldivers 2, just as a note, for democracy.
Yes.
It'll liberate some planets.
Yeah. Great game. That's a lot of fun. Yeah, we're gonna.
Do we
be
want to like
democratic out there.
unanimously agree that the game of the week will be C900 Thieves?
For me, that's it. I'm in. Like, I don't know if you guys have an LEC pick. I know G2 Fanatics this upcoming week, which is always pretty
We've
fun,
seen it every
so.
time, and G2 always stumps Fnatic. Sorry, Broxah. So like it's like it doesn't matter. Okay, like if you look at the statistics.
Broxah, thoughts?
True. I don't know, but I mean,
He has
true.
no
If you-
thoughts. No. If you look at the statistics, when's the last time Fnatic won against G2? That's all I'm gonna say.
A single
Yeah,
best
well,
of,
actually.
probably relatively recently, like within the last 3 years. But
Wow,
like,
that's not 3 years is a long time. That was before
I mean, for
my
Fnatic
time.
fans, they're still like, oh, we're one of the best team, we're the best team, and they didn't win since 2018. So like, they haven't won a championship in 6 years.
Wow. I mean, talk about building your brand, right?
Yeah.
If you
Ever
win
since
once,
Broxah left,
yeah, Broxah,
went
they need
downhill.
you.
I'm not saying, Sam Matthews, that was the problem. He's the
You're not
CEO.
saying Broxah punching other players was the problem?
No, it worked for them.
Yeah.
One punch, one title. That was the name. That was the motto written
Thank you, Mr.
above their
Broxah.
practice room.
That
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense.
Wow,
yeah.
smart. No, but I actually think it's a pretty interesting time for both EU and NA, to be honest, because a lot of the old guards are like changing and now have to fight for their spot. I mean, TSM doesn't even exist anymore. CLG is gone. In EU, a lot of the OGs are gone as well, and Fnatic have been like around the top for a while, but you know, back when I joined, Fnatic was the place to be. That has changed to G2. In NA, Team Liquid as well, trying to find their footing, and I think it's really interesting to see all these newer organizations actually really fighting and showcasing that, while experience in these orgs go a long way. Just coming in with an entirely different perspective and approach can also, you know, take you really far. Like NRG last year, for example, did something completely new, and it just worked wonders, right? And I think MDK this year in EU has been an example as well. So we'll see how everything plays out, but I think Fnatic G2, I don't know. I'm not entirely sold out.
It should be a good best of one. Like, to give it its
It's gonna be hype.
It should be a good series. They're both playing really well at the moment. Fnatic losing to Heretics was more, as you say, an aberration than anything else, and G2 look a little bit vulnerable at times. I just can't put it up against C900 Thieves
Absolutely
like best
not.
of 5, right? It should be a good series,
that's the
but
thing.
if you have to pick between watching one or the other, I'd be watching C900 Thieves, unless I'm casting LEC, in which case, Nicole, my manager, I will 100% be fully focused on my job.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Everybody
I think-
is working it.
That's all right. We need the LEC raids, you know. So afterwards, you can enjoy
true.
some C9.
Oh, yeah.
What you need
yeah.
is Cadril raids, man. That's
Yeah.
what you really need. Cadril, Ebar, and Kometo.
Just all just rate the LCS at the same time. That's really funny that you're like bringing up like Fnatic back in like a really long time ago, winning, because there's this TikTok account. I know. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to bring it up. There's this TikTok account that does like League of Legends lore. And basically what they do is they do carousel posts where they're like a picture of a team when they won something, and then a picture which is like the unfortunate future. And I saw this picture, and it was you were on it, Broxah. It was a Fnatic picture. You guys were all, you know, like dressed in orange because it was Fnatic, and then the title of that picture was like, they all win a championship. And then you slide to the next one, but he will leave them and they will never touch glory again. And there was a picture of Caps in G2 jersey, and I was like, yo, that must have sucked.
But it's crazy to think about, right? Because
You're like
Nemesis-
history for most people.
No, but Nemesis came into our team in 2019 as a rookie, and he was like just instantly a top 3 mid laner in the league for pretty much the entirety of his stay in the LEC. but he's always being compared to Caps, and that's not an entirely fair position to be in, because it's like Nemesis was so damn good, but a lot of those streams are often being overshined by Caps going to G2 and winning, right? And I also think people forget how close our battles were. Like in 2019, we were up against them in the winners bracket. We were up 2-0. They reverse swept us. We played them in the final. We were up 2-1 in Athens. We lost again. So we were really close back then. And even in 2020, Fnatic were really good. They made it to quarters at Worlds, and I think they were up 2-0 versus top esports from China, and almost they made it out. So like so many times they've been so close. Like we can agree 2022 and 23 were like more rough than the previous ones, and it's gone a bit in the wrong direction. But even then, there's been moments of glory, and I don't think it's going to take much for Fnatic to start challenging again, or any other EU team really. We just need someone to step it up and challenge G2 so they can reach the next level as well.
Please make it a little bit more spicy. Talk about spicy, actually, and making things a bit more spicy. We have a segment where we're going to be going over community questions. So again, a reminder, if you want to ask us any questions, put it down in the comment section. We're going to reply on the next episode. And this one is from Kiosk X14, and this is related to Perkz being benched. Particularly, if I remember this correctly, is yourself, Broxah, and Medic agreeing with the fact that, sometimes managers or coaches need a little bit more of a say in terms of what goes on and what is and isn't acceptable. So the question goes, is power given to orgs better than power given to players? What if there are corrupt managers who never win anything because they can't fix personal issues? Honestly, I'm going to say skill issue at that point, But Medic, what would you like to say?
So I think we talked a little bit more about the Perkz thing earlier, where we have more information now, and it seems like a weird reason to fire someone. I don't think giving power to the coaches is a bad thing. I think it has to be like a mutual respect, and I think for a long time the players have had a lot of power because they were the big faces, and now we're seeing that power dynamic shift back a little bit. Mm-hmm. Regarding the corruption, yeah, sure. Like if someone's being a dick and keeps firing good players, then maybe the people who are above him should fire him. Doesn't really matter if he's corrupt. It's a spurious question in my mind, because it's like saying, what if the manager of a football team is corrupt and keeps trying to lose, or just doesn't like his team? It's like, well, then the CEO of the football team should fire the manager, obviously. Like, you don't just get appointed manager for life. You're not a pope, right? There is someone who's asking you about your key performance indicators, and if you're not hitting those key performance indicators, then they should be fired. But I don't think that means that players should be given the power to then fire the coach, right? However, there's always there's nuance and there's shades of grey to the whole thing. So yeah.
Just no one should fire anyone.
No, I disagree with that as well.
No.
Some people should be fired out of a cannon into the sun.
Oh wow.
In game.
In game.
You need to always add in game.
Smolder.
You gotta keep your smile and add in game.
With a lot of other things, you gotta find a balance, right? Because I don't think the coach or the manager should have 110% of the power, but neither should the players. The way that I look at it is that so when I was on Fnatic, it was right after they had Daylor as a coach back in 2015, when they were really successful and went to semis at Worlds. And one thing that everybody said about Daylor I thought was really interesting, because he had some knowledge about League and he understood the game at a really high level, but one of the things that made him stand out was seeing all the pieces that he had in the team, looking at it like a puzzle, and then asking the right questions and trying to find out how to make these pieces work together to get the most out of the team. And I think that's a really important part that needs to be taken into account as well, that all players are generally gonna look out for themselves. That's just how it is in all sports. All players are gonna be selfish, and nobody is gonna have their back except themselves. So you need somebody who looks at the big picture and finds out how to structure everything and how to make these guys play really well as a team. But a lot of coaches and managers go a little bit too far in that direction, where they think they know the game better than the players, and they try to change how they play, or how they what champions they play, how they approach the game, and all that stuff. And I think that's where the problem lies. Everybody needs to know their place within the team, know their strengths and weaknesses, and just find a balance, because everybody has important perspectives. And I think in some ways, like, some of these teams could literally benefit from hiring a silver player to give them analysis after game, because some of the mistakes you see are that stupid. Like, I would watch the games with like a friend who's never watched League before, who's hardstock bronze, and they're like, this guy just got chased down for like 20 seconds. He was 100% dead, but he flashed for no reason. Why the hell did he do that? And I'm like, yeah, true. I mean, it's actually stupid. It makes no sense. Like, a pro player did this. This bronze guy could see it, and the pro player couldn't. Like, sometimes things are really obvious, right? But just, it's a matter of perspectives, I think. Perspectives and balance.
So you're saying Twitch chat is always right, and Reddit is always right. Nice.
Oh, yeah, good. Sure. Let's just say that.
Hire someone from Twitch chat or Reddit to watch your games, and you will get better.
Yep.
This question, Kiosk 14, I think that if you watch the movie Major League, you'd really enjoy it, because this is pretty much the plot of Major League.
Oh, they made a whole movie about someone's question. That's crazy.
I mean, yeah, the owner's trying to sabotage the team to spite their ex, and it's like one of Charlie Sheen's first great movies, to spite their ex. Yeah.
Oh, that's pathetic.
No, it's a great movie. It's very funny. Yeah, it's like one of Charlie Sheen's first great performances.
Ted Lasso as well. Like, the guy owns
a little bit.
The man owns the team, and then the woman takes over control in the divorce and is trying to make the team lose. So she hires Ted Lasso, who doesn't know anything about football.
Ah,
yeah,
but he fixed all the personal issues.
He did. He was, but that's the thing. He didn't know anything about the game, but he knew about people.
So
and then he
Broxah's
slowly
right.
learns about the game. But he sat in his role. He was like, "Hey, I can people manage. I will hire people that understand how to play the game."
Yeah.
Brox is always right. I think that's what I've worked out.
Goldfish memory.
Apart from when he doesn't play Rakan jungle.
Okay.
Those were dark times, though. That was a dark meta.
Dark times. I mean, this is a dark time too, when we were seeing Smolder perma getting picked. But there's another question from the community as well.
Have funnel meta.
7796. What do you think about having sixth person in game who can see the perspective of all the players and shot call? What?
Nope.
No. That's like.
Nope.
No. Why
this ain't Valorant.
That's,
I mean, it's been
but even
discussed for
then,
a
like
while.
the coach in Valorant will watch the game and will have to call a timeout to be able to tell his team to sit the fuck down and stop peeking without smokes, because what are you doing? You're not that guy. To me that makes no sense. But I don't know about you guys.
Yellow Star comes out of retirement and wins a bunch. 6-man.
It takes away a lot of inherent skills that come from being a player, right? Like the map sense, macro, etc. You don't need to do anything. You just have the 5 people with the best hands on the Rift, and then you'd have someone puppeteering them behind the scenes. I don't think it's a bad idea if you separate it from League of Legends. If you made another MOBA where you have a 6th player and you're like, cool, this is how we play this MOBA, I think that's okay. Like, that is a different game. But if you want to introduce it into League of Legends, I think it fundamentally changes everything about League esports. And I don't even think like you could count the world championships in the same breath, right? It'll be like the pre-coach era and the post-coach era, similar to how we had the the freak spacement era and then the post-freak spacement era, you know? So yeah, I think it changes and warps too much of how the game is played. Maybe you could introduce like a timeout, but even then, do they have perfect vision? Because you have perfect vision in spec. And then it's like, okay, well, guys, here are all the summoner spell cooldowns. Here's where all the pink wards are. Here's when the enemy red buff is going to come up. Here's, when you want to set up around this dragon. You're just giving way too much information over to the players. And part of the joy of League is people playing imperfectly because of imperfect information.
I think what you would want from a player in that world would be pretty interesting, because the only thing that matters is the players having good mechanics. Like, they don't even need a brain. You just have a 6th guy with the brain and who thinks for them. And I think
like an AD carry, but on every role.
Yeah, actually kind of true. No, but I think players being able to, have their own overview and trusting their instincts and going for the plays that they think are right and trying to, get everybody on the same page is a big part of what makes League interesting. And I also think a lot of the big highlights plays that we've seen throughout the years may not even have happened if they had a coach, preventing them from walking into dangerous situations. Like the biggest highlight play of my career, I basically walked in the river and I kind of got
You
caught
hard
out.
inted,
but
man.
I got caught
so
in the river by a Leona and a Gragas, and then I outplayed my way out of it. And if I had a coach, being the sixth person, I don't think I would ever have been in that situation, because I didn't need to have map awareness. Someone would have it for me. And I don't know. I think it would kind of lose its beauty.
Even probably the most talked about play in the history of League, the Faker Ryu Z 1v1.
Faker, what was that?
Do you think Faker's sixth man is saying, hey Faker, you can take him. All you have to do is dodge 6 shurikens, cleanse his death mark and his ignite, then jump back in. He'll flash away from you, and then you could ignite him and kill him. By the way, afterwards, you should walk under the Nexus towers and kill yourself in-game. Because that's what he does, by the way, after the play. There was a Shen in the game, and they both had ult, and neither of them used it in the fight either. So maybe it was only one Shen. Anyway, there was a Shen that didn't use ult on either of the players. 2 Shens? Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's LCK, actually. Obviously, it's 2 Shens. I forgot it. Yeah, both of them had ult. So, it just takes away a lot of those cool moments. Also, it changes draft a lot, right? Something I remembered about pre-recorded drafting that we don't see anymore is, some of the best discussions that have been had around drafts just wouldn't happen anymore. Like the MF support for Ku Tigers, or Rox Tigers they were at the time, versus T1. The Heimerdinger jungle with Blitzcrank that hard push through top tier 1. It was GSB versus CJ Entus, all the way back. If you have 20 minutes to plan around an enemy Heimerdinger jungle, you probably know they're going to try and invade your red and blitz hook it over the wall. It's just all these cool things that you wouldn't have to think about anymore as a pro player. And it's just, yeah. I don't think having a sixth man works in League. I think having a coach who can maybe feed information every now and again with only the team's fog of war would be possibly interesting, but having perfect information is just changes entirely how the game is played.
Yeah, maybe EU or LCS will finally have a chance at international events if that's the case.
Because they would have it as well. The Eastern teams would have it as well. We'd be doomed.
Fucked.
The only other thing, very quickly, it changes too much how solo queue and pro play line up. There's already a big chasm between the two, but Riot are very very particular about, we want playing solo queue to be as close to playing pro as possible, so it feels aspirational, right? In the same way with football, you can get onto a football field and you can do what Messi does, although obviously you don't have the skill. I don't have the skill that Faker has, but I can still try and play Zed mid. But if I have a sixth man, pro play probably looks drastically different to what a normal solo queue game would look like.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point to bring up. I
have them every now and again, Ginny.
Yeah. Yeah. Nah, that's pushing it, but
and subscribe.
You're doing your best. Yeah, I think so far, honestly, all 3 of you has done the like and subscribe, and Medic's one has been the best. So gotta give it to him. You're just randomly shouting it. I think it works. Yeah. I would like and subscribe if I saw the video. You should too. Thank you guys so much for tuning in for today.